Hello and welcome back. So, I'm still having a bit of a dig into SQL On Demand, and I put a video out earlier this week just opening it and trying to get it working and seeing what it can and can't do. And there were some things that I just work straight out of the box, really cool, and some stuff I was a little bit disappointed, honestly. Some things I was expecting to go push a button, see something cool, and it went no. However, after putting the video out, some of the guys from Microsoft reached out and went, "You're kind of doing it wrong." So there's a few bits I can show you which actually just puts a little bit of an icing on top of what they're currently doing in SQL On Demand. So apologies for anything kind of I missed, but let's have a look at how some of it actually works a little bit better and some of the things that aren't implemented yet. So, okay, here we are. So we're in the Synapse workspace. I've got a few things set up. So back to where we were, I've got a couple of Spark notebooks here. So first things, I'm just going to set something up really quickly. It's a demo I actually did on Databricks for a user group just the other day. So I've got a list, just a little quick Python array of some tables. I'm going to say run through that list. I'm going to create a new database called AdventureWorks. So I'm just making a new Spark database. And then really simple, we're saying for everything in that list. So just iterate through each of those different tables. I want you to grab the place in the lake. I want you to decide on a new place in the lake. Read the data frame in. So dataframe.read Spark. I'm getting it to infer schemas and headers because it's a CSV. Telling it it's a CSV and then loading it into a data frame. I'm throwing a quick bit of lineage on there so I know which file it came from. I'm just writing that out to Parquet. That's super important. So in all the demos I did first, certainly when I first turned Synapse on, I went straight to Delta. And Delta is the open source Delta Lake. If you're in Databricks, it's Databricks Delta. And it's essentially a transaction layer. It's a wrapper on top of Parquet. So the actual data is still held in Parquet files, but it's like a Parquet++. It's Parquet with some whistles and bells and extra bits. Now, some of the things I was trying to get working simply aren't working for Delta yet. Hopefully yet is big, underlined yet. So I just reloaded it as Parquet. So I've said for each of those tables, loop through, do this, get the data in, write it out as Parquet, and then run a bit of SQL. So I'm just generating the SQL on the fly for each table, throw it into the AdventureWorks Spark table, register it, it's Parquet, there's the location. So I've ran that, I managed to get an AdventureWorks table. Now, one of the things that I saw originally, second of my first video I put out, I was looking in here and going, well, what is this? Address? That's great, but we've got no columns. That looks like a Delta problem. So interestingly, going back into the ones I've just registered using this script, I've got metadata. I can actually see what it is. So it looks like its ability to parse some of that stuff actually just hasn't been implemented for Delta yet, which is fair enough. We're still in preview. So that's cool. So I can do some of that stuff and I can do the whole right-click load to data frame, and that's all happy days. Again, not terribly happy with the syntax, but it works. So that's good. And that is apparently a very important difference. So this Spark database has a lot of tables, has a lot of things in AdventureWorks. And one of the things I was desperate to just want to work without me even thinking about it is the ability for me to actually come in here and say, I want to open you up in SQL. I just want SQL to understand what this is. So if I go and just actually over here, if I say I want to do a new SQL script, I want to use the database of AdventureWorks. So again, I'm using a Spark database, not a SQL On Demand database. And I want to be able to say select star from DBO. So you don't have a schema in Hive. So in Hive, it doesn't have this idea of the center thing. I've got two-level naming. I've got my database and I've got my table. So DBO, everything is by default, which will make some people squirm. And then actually I can go in and run that. And lo and behold, I have some data. So that didn't work when I was trying to do it on a Delta Lake table. It does work when it's a Parquet table. So apparently this is selective replication. So it's not querying the Hive database. It's just if you register a Hive database with Synapse and you register certain kinds of table, at the moment Parquet, it makes a shadow copy of that that's available for the SQL side. Which means if I come in SQL, I can write things directly on my Hive things without me worrying about it. So yeah, it's a little odd that we have to have two copies, but then it's hidden away, it's abstracted, it's done for me. So great, fantastic. If I'm using Parquet, I can just use SQL On Demand. I don't have to wait for a cluster to start, and I can query my data. And that opens up a whole load of stuff. We'll come on to some of those things. The other side of things is having a look at larger data sets. So, classic example, everyone does it. You've got the taxi data set. So New York taxis, very famous open data set. I've just quickly grabbed that and said, can I pull it in? And we had 66 million rows. So just doing that and saying, actually, I want to write you out. I want you to be, very importantly, partitioned. So I want to use partition by. And I know there's a column called pick a month. So what that's going to do is Hive style syntax. So it's going to create a folder for each unique value of that column. And it's going to segregate my data into those different folders. I'm going to do format of Parquet, not Delta. And I'm going to do a write to just my local one this time. So I'm not going back to that other lake. I'm going to go base. And we can call it taxi. I'm actually going to add something in here. So I have been playing around. I've done this before. I've been cheating. And I'm going to say this is overwrite. Normally, if you've got a data frame, you try and write someone where there's already data, it'll throw an error and go, there's already data there. We don't know what to do. So override, just going to trash anything that's there, create a new copy of it, get that data running in there. So we'll have two things we can look at. We can have a look at a slightly bigger data set that is partitioned, and we can have a look at a load of data sets that's registered with a Hive table that came from Spark that's still Parquet. And then we can have a look at how that works in the SQL On Demand side. So while that's running, let's just switch over into Management Studio. So I can go back, I've got my Adventure Works table. And the thing I found odd last time, so in my base one, I was having a look here and going, what's here? And I couldn't see anything. There's nothing really in here I could work with. Pretty useless. If I look in my Adventure Works one where it has the Parquet side of things, I can go into my external tables and lo and behold, I see a load of tables there. So again, it's that idea of the replicated side. So when I'm looking in that base database and I'm going, where are my tables? There's no objects. That's because they haven't replicated over to the shadow copy that's used for SQL On Demand. These ones I have, so I can tell me my products, do a quick select top 1000, it pulls it all out, it's got IntelliSense, and it works as if it was any other SQL table. Except again, this is going back to my Parquet. So that is a nice, snappy ability to do direct query against Parquet, and that is really hard. So a lot of things can't do that. To do it in Databricks, I have to have a cluster spun up. I have to be paying by the minute for however many nodes I've got sat there waiting for me. And it'll take 4 or 5 minutes to start that cluster before I can run my query and get my data back. So that's great. The fact I can do that and I don't have to wait opens up some stuff. So let's see, does my thing, so that's still running, still thinking about it. Might be able to show you it while it's waiting. Let's see, what do I have? This is what we're waiting for, there we go. So when that's actually run, it's about to go and replace this stuff. But inside my taxi folder, so I just said make base, make taxis, put my data in there. But because I said partition by pickup month, it said, cool, okay, here's a load of folders for pickup month. So that should work quite nicely. I'll just see if I can cancel that actually rather than waiting for it to run. See how nicely it cancels? Gotta think about it. It might kill my data, we'll see it. But importantly, once we've done that, we can now access it and we can start doing some SQL. So I can grab that location. Again, I'll probably have to go to the full location. So let's go into my root. Let's just grab any old random bit of Parquet and say, I'm going to do a SQL query. And we saw that last time. It gives you a big list of stuff. And actually, I don't really care about a single file because whoever does that, get rid of that. And we can put these wildcards in, we can put some stars in. And that's going to become important. So I could just do that and try and do the whole thing. I could certainly do that and get everything in there. This one is the important bit. So where I've said that's a partition column and I've highlighted it, that's going to be really important in terms of how it knows how to query that data. Which is kind of good and kind of bad. So if we just do this, if we just run this, we should see some data there. Okay, so I've got a load of data. If I do a quick count, let's just see how much data I'm dealing with. So this should be my 66 million. So if I say actually I only want it from the second month, then I've got 97 million. You know, so it's kind of lots of, not 9.7. I've got lots of data held in different folders that we can go back and we can work with. Now, the super important thing with that is that's pushing down that predicate. So if I've got a filter on that pickup month, I only want to read the files that are inside that folder. I don't care about the other folders. Now, obviously, I've just hard-coded that, so that's pretty obvious. But what we're going to do is partition elimination. Now, in Spark, that's particularly good. So in Spark, I can say, well, I want a data frame, and I want to be, spark.read, my normal stuff. I want it to be Parquet. I want to go and get it from that location. I can just say go and pick that up. And if I do that, it's automatically going to know that that data is partitioned. It basically just looks inside that folder and goes, oh yeah, there's some folders in there that have got the syntax of something equals something. I can just read the contents and go, well, that's got partitioning, and that is Hive-style partitioning. So I don't need to tell it there's a certain folder and tell it how many. It's just going to infer the fact that there is a column called pickup month, even if that doesn't exist in my data. That's literally all I need to do. It's not quite as straightforward on the SQL On Demand side. It's pretty good, but it's not quite as straightforward. So what I need to do is do this, and then I've got the syntax, going to have to look it up, is file path. So I can do that. So that's super important. So that's saying, okay, of this table, because it's an open row set, it automatically has this attribute called file path, which you can use to append the file name onto each row, which is kind of cool anyway. And then I can say one, and what that's going to do is going to pick out the first wildcard token it can find. So going in there saying, if I've got that as my star, then it's going to say, well, the value of that first asterisk I've got in there. So I can say, well, that's equal to. Now, even though we've done a wildcard there, then that should bring back our same 9.7 million. So check it. Without the wildcard, so that's full wildcard and I guess 66, where r.filepath equals 2, and I suddenly get 9.7. So that's doing partition elimination. That is reading less data. And that becomes especially important for SQL On Demand, because SQL On Demand is priced by the amount of data that throughput. And if you're reading less data, you pay less. So partition elimination, not only does it speed things up massively, because we're in a lake, we don't have an index. It doesn't have a clustered index B tree to find the record you're looking for. It'll read everything into memory, chop it down, and then do its work. If you can do something like this and put partition elimination in, suddenly everything goes a lot faster. Makes a lot of sense. But I don't do that every time. That to me isn't great, because it's basically just ignoring the fact that it knows the column name. It's written literally in my path. This is the column. This is how I want to refer to it. But it doesn't look like that's been implemented to pick that up automatically. We're going to have to do something to tell it that's what the pickup month is. See my Spark read come back, and that's just still waiting. Spark's going a bit funny tonight. Okay, but what I can do is that's literally just a file, an attribute. So I can say, well, I get rid of my Westone and just pull that in, and then I can call that pickup month. And then if I just do a quick top 100 on there, then that's okay. That's essentially just appending it right down the bottom as if it was another column in my data, so you can see it's got pickup months in there. So if I save this as a view, so I can do, again, create view, and we're going to call this dbo.taxi as, we need to do it in our SQL database. One of the things, so if I had my AdventureWorks database, which I can query, and it allows me to pull back things from, I can't create objects in there. We got a little error saying it's not allowed for a replicated database, because again, that is a shadow copy of our Spark Hive database. So I need to do it in a SQL On Demand one. So SQL 10, created last time, run. We should see that, there we go. So I've got that back. So I can now do select star from and dbo.taxi. Well, at least it's a big day, let's do top 100. Run that. That should be going off, and that's running my query again. And now I should, right over the side, I've got my pickup month as a column in there. I can go ahead and use that. So let's just see if I can do my count star. And then I can say where my pickup month equals 2. And there we go. And that was nice and quick. So it looks like it's passing that down. I mean, it'd be great when we actually get this little grayed out button saying query plan. I'd love to actually be able to prove the fact that that is doing partition elimination and not just running quickly. But yeah, really, really nice that we can actually sort of do that. It's it's frustrating that we have to go back to the old days of manually specifying what each of those wildcards are. Hive syntax has been around for a while, but if that's the amount of work we have to do to actually go back to that, that's not the end of the world. That's absolutely fine. And honestly, if we're doing this kind of thing and we're generating SQL programmatically to register a load of things, then doing the same to register those views in our SQL On Demand table, that's not too much work. That's fine. So yeah, some nice things in there, some nice things that actually sort of fits in and works. Again, I don't know why Spark is being a bit flaky. Cool, okay. However, the biggest thing for me in terms of being able to use SQL On Demand on top of a replicated Spark Parquet table is PowerBI. And there's been loads of demos going around, loads of people talking about this, but that's kind of the next big thing, right? You can see how much I use PowerBI, and that PowerBI Desktop is not the first thing on my list. So I can get PowerBI Desktop up, and we've got that SQL endpoint we used last time that we can go and actually explore PowerBI from. So I just need to dive into the portal to grab that out. I've already got it here, there we go. So let's grab that. So PowerBI, I can say I want to get data. And then I don't need to do anything special. I can just say, actually, I'm just going from a database. I'm going from Azure SQL DB. So I can do that. It asks me where it's from. That's my server. So if my SQL On Demand is the server that I'm trying to get it from, I'm going to go from AdventureWorks, which is, again, a Hive SQL repository. And most importantly is the fact that I can choose import or DirectQuery. And DirectQuery is big. Now, we've been able to do this kind of stuff in Databricks. If you have a Databricks cluster spun up, you can use the JDBC connector. PowerBI can talk to it. You can see a list of all the Hive tables that are registered. You can set up DirectQuery. But again, you need a cluster spun up. You need to have something sitting there waiting, going, is anyone going to send me a query? And that costs money. You're just paying for all the time it's just sat there and no one's actually querying it. It's just charge ticking along. Whereas we've got this, and I can say, well, actually, I want my product and I want sales order detail, and I want to load it. And it goes off, looks at those tables, brings them in, and then obviously, we can build a model, do all that kind of stuff. There we go. I've got my tables in there, and again, these are Parquet files still in the lake. I'm going to create a relationship to product ID, quick, really, really quickly. Okay, there we go. So I can, from there, pull in some data and say, well, I want to see product name. And against that, I want to see the sales total. Let's do a line total. There we go. So super quick report, running direct query off the lake, telling me my top products. Now that for me is absolutely huge. Just being able to query the lake in real time. And it's one of the things that's always been kind of the slight downfall of when people are talking about having that glorious thing of the data lake house of, I do a load of dynamic Spark, I do a load of kind of elastic scale, spin stuff up, work some stuff, turn it off again. And then I get to something like PowerBI, and PowerBI can't read Parquet. PowerBI cannot just connect straight to the data lake and read Parquet files natively. You always have to have something in the way, either connecting to a Databricks cluster, connecting to SQL data warehouse, or Azure Synapse SQL pools now, and then having an external table. There's always has to be something turned on that you're paying for that acts as the intermediary, allowing you to query it, which means people don't do direct query over things like Parquet because it's hard and costly. So you always end up doing import models, and then, overnight spin up a Spark cluster, generate your models, turn the Spark cluster off again. That's fine, that's a nice pattern. But it just meant, direct query is just not a thing you do. You always have to put it into a database. Now, the fact that we can do this kind of thing and we can have it working dynamically suddenly opens up a ton of stuff. So, lots and lots of things going on, lots of things kind of coming out. Probably should read the documentation before I start playing with some stuff, but it's always interesting to just see what you can do just by having a play, by having a bit of an explore. Wrapping up. Partitioning, it works. It's not as slick as it is with out-of-the-box Hive, but actually you can do it and it is performant, and you can make it easier for your users by wrapping it in some logical objects. The Hive replicating over to the SQL On Demand databases, it's limited in that it's only certain objects. Currently, it looks like it's only if it's a direct Parquet table, it'll replicate over, but then you can query it instantly in SQL On Demand. And again, I'd hope that's just something that just grows and they add more and more things to that list of what can be shared as the tool matures. There's loads and loads of stuff in there that's actually getting better and getting cooler. All right, so that's me for today. And I've got tons of more things to explore. I've got lots of orchestration things to look at. I've got traditional SQL pools to look at. So join me next time and we'll dig further into even more of it. Have a good night.